Good morning, if you're joining me here on YouTube. I'm the writer and illustrator of two books, Creating a Fantasy Realm. This is The Realms of Elsewhere, Book 1, The Hidden Destiny. And on its back, kind of describes where I'm coming from. I drew a map in 1977 of a world called Elsewhere. And I painted some illustrations at the same time, 1977, of which this one was put on the back of this first book. There will be 9 books in all, and I've written 4. In fact, I'm working on book 5 at the moment, and going to the Isle of Skye to finish it. This is book 2, The Uprising, which is literally just come out. And part of my journey was as a sculptor, working in porcelain. And this is me working in my studio around about 1977, magical studio really, with somebody watching. This is what people do. They watch what I do. Anyway, one of the things I do is I make lots of different characters in my world, and some of them, like this little fella. He's called Bradon Borron, and I'm creating a series of Boffins in one of my countries, and they are clever people that can do extraordinary things. Braden is actually an alchemist and makes alchemy with toadstools, and he is rare amongst the what I might call fairy people or elementals. Fairies don't trust anyone, really. Ever since the Great War with the Lord of the Shadows, when he destroyed so many of them, they have shied away, not trusting what people say. So many of them died, they created a hill of bones, rattling fairy bones. So, working with others is something they do not do. They like certain people, but they will stay in the shadows, stay apart. So they were curious about Bradon Borron, for he had stuff about him. All boffins have wonderful hats, and they keep a lot of their wonderment in their hat. And it was so with Braden. And one of the fairy women, a fairy wife with the skill of the sight, began to dream of him and his skills, until one day he was standing on a hill, and he was doing some alchemy with some toadstools, and suddenly he was surrounded by all these fairy folk, and they wanted to know what he was up to. And when he said, she told them all to gather around, and she told her dream. And then she looked up at Braden, for he was bigger than them, and he's not very big, 3 foot high at the most. And she said, we would like to work with you. I have seen that there could be magic, that we could create something very unusual. Alchemy, she said. And so it was that the fairies and Braden began alchemy. I've started to draw them here, holding this kind of like it's a special kind of sieve, and the gold that comes out of the pot that he makes goes through this sieve and then seeps down what will be fly agaric top, and certain fly agarics will have that magic in it. As to the reason why there would be such a magic and what the magic is for is not for this moment, but for another film, when this picture is finished. Well, maybe not finished. Good morning. Somebody's there. Oh, there are quite a lot of somebodies. Sorry, I do what I do I've been working on my world for 50 years. And my son, bless him, Fabian, got me onto TikTok 20 months ago to do what I'm doing here and to share my world and my vision and why I'm being dyslexic. I found my own way to share my work through storytelling, traveling around the world, telling different types of stories, and sharing my world through sculptures, the porcelain sculptures, and the illustrations. And eventually he said, Dad, I'm going to put you on TikTok. I just want you to be you. Do what you used to do when you were in Sheringham. People will come and see you and watch you making or drawing. Only now, of course, Dad, you've got your books. So we started on TikTok 20 months ago. And here goes my clock. And it's not right, I just realised. And 20 months later, we now have... Good morning, that's an unusual name. Scylla. I'm not noob. I wonder what that means. Is noob somebody? Noob. Is that an illustrator? A writer? No, I'm Paul Jackson. I've been Paul Jackson ever since I was born, and I'm now 72 years old. I've been working on a creative project journey for almost 50 years. I'm in the process of writing 9 books. This is book 1, The Hidden Destiny, and the second one has just been published, which is The Uprising. And you can find me on pauljacksoniselsewhere.com. Anyway, we started on TikTok, and we now have the 12,000 followers. And I do a live a week and about 3 films. And something else that they asked me to do was to do goodnight reads. So I read my books, and I tell stories, and I like a gentle vibe. I'm not into loud music and banging and crushing and flashes and whatever else. I'm just creating an alternative world, I think. They call it world building. Funny word, but it is true. A bit like Terry Pratchett or Philip Pullman or Tolkien or R.R. Moore. I suppose it's not Game of Thrones and it's not Middle Earth. It's my world. And a number of people reading the books are saying it's an alchemy. It's an allegory of this world, only in your fantastical realm. There's a tyrant called the Lord of the Shadows. There are people called the Uprisers. And there is this sense of injustice. The world is slowly being swallowed up. Evolution is going backwards. And the Lord of the Shadows wants everything to be destroyed, so much so that every grave will be empty, as if we never existed. The light of the universe will be destroyed. But it's not a bleak story at all. It's about people coming together to fight together and to fight for the right to be themselves. Yeah. So I've worked in this kind of way, very, very detailed, since 1977. Watercolours and pen and ink. porcelain. And when I started writing the books in 2012, I just thought I'll try, because I'm very dyslexic. But having been a storyteller for almost 30 years, it allowed me to make the journey from my imagination to the page and to explore possibility. So Bradon Borron and people like Braden come into my imagination. And as a storyteller, what you do is you enter the space of the character. You become the character. You enter the landscape where they live. You open the door to their house. As I say that, I can hear the door opening, creaking slightly. Need some oil on there. And it becomes real. So when I'm writing or when I'm telling stories in front of an audience, whether it's 20 or 100 or 300, the whole world that I'm talking about is totally real. So as I draw Braden, and I imagine the fairies are watching him, surrounding him on this little hill, and they are already discussing how they can do this alchemy and create these extraordinary fly agarics. Yeah, so that's what I do, I suppose. No, I'm not Noodle. I don't know what noob. I wonder what noob is. If you'd like to put it in the chat, because I don't know. Maybe it's language that I don't understand. So dyslexics like me make up words. It's what we do. We make sense of the world by reimagining it. It becomes our world with our rules. So I have 32 countries in my world of elsewhere. And I have fairy folk, but I have Omrons, and I have howlerhawks. I have dragons who fight for the light. I have Nargs and Wunderians and Juradulous. I have 12 different nations of the elves and many other nations and types of people. And it's what happens there. It's the way it works. And I often work very small. There's a little illustration. And I think working small is really interesting. It's like hiding things, really. And if you can hide things, people kind of like finding. So I haven't gone away very far. I just thought I'd show you a couple of illustrations while I was here. So here's one of my illustrations, which is a watercolour with pen and ink. And yeah, that went into a book. It's quite fun. But I love all that. It's very Escher-ish, really. Escher, who changed perspectives, and extraordinary artist. So that's the mischievous trees. This is little Vasilisa and the magical telescope from my own books, and Master Eye. So yes, I love working in detail. It's my thing. Whether that's a noob or not, I have no idea. But there it is. So what I want to do is to be able to share my work here on YouTube as much as I do on my beloved TikTok, where I have collectors and listeners and community from around the world. I do find it wonderful that I can sit here in my studio and somebody from the Netherlands, and somebody from New Zealand, and another from Portugal, and maybe somebody from Canada. Obviously, we're dealing with different time zones. People stay up, or they get up early, depending. But it is quite fun. Sharing my world. And there he is, he's starting to come together now. Beginning to become who he really is. That's not a good pen. It's a bit dry. Let's try this one. Well, let's try too. It's interesting. There. Let's try this one. See what this is like. Yeah. These pens are amazing, but they do eventually dry, which is fine. I can't complain. Now, most boffins, and I have a lot of boffins, these inventors and makers of extraordinary engines and things, they often wear glasses of one sort or another. I want to use the pen really, really, really lightly. I'm just going to have a little gadget on here. There. And then I'm just going to put that up there. And stop breathing. There, that's quite cool. A little flag, Eric, on the end of his glass. Clearly, you would if you were an alchemist working with flag Erics. You would do that kind of thing, and you would definitely have special kinds of glasses. No doubt about it. There. When he fills up his bag in the morning to go off to work in the forest, there is this forest of white trees, not so far away from the hill where he likes to go and sleep. And when Braden is there, he walks through the white forest, and the trees watch him coming and going. And I think it was the trees, these particular white trees, that told the fairies about this Boffin, that he was unusual, and he had a glint in his eye of understanding. Just going to put a little bit more there now. Glint. He had a glint of understanding that was unusual, and that the fairies should watch him a while. So one morning they sat in the white trees high up as he went beneath, and they looked at the light that was emanating from him, and they said to one another quietly, "He is different. Look at him. Let's watch him." So they followed him. They went from one tree to another, leaping and climbing and flying, until they could see him at his business. It wasn't much longer after that that they made the decision that they needed to work with him. And it was then that one of them, the woman, said, "I've been dreaming about one of these boffins in their big hats. It must be him." "What was the dream?" they said. "I dreamt that we worked together." "What? But we never work with anyone." "I dreamt that we worked together. We're going to make something special. Our flyer garricks are beautiful, as you know. But what if we could make them alchemically different? What if we could make them have the kind of magic that we could grow inside the toadstool?" So it was that they approached one day when Braden was in the forest working with the toadstools, and they put it to him. Would he work with them? They would like to work with him. And he looked at them and decided that this would be a perfect idea, for he knew as well as anyone that fairy folk have powers that he certainly does not have. And if they together could create these toadstools that could grow magic inside of them, just think. It would grow in such a way. It would only grow in the way that the toadstool would grow it, not the kind of way that our minds would grow it, or our fingers if we had spells there. So they agreed, and they began to make alchemy. He would pour a liquid metal into the toadstool. It was a metal created by the fairy people and the sun. And this metal was then sieved and grown inside the toadstool. And when it was left behind, when the toadstool moved on, underneath it where the roots had been, it left this metal for the fairy folk and for Braden. And this metal was stronger, so strong that even truth couldn't cut through it. It was extraordinary, and it had the powers that they had never seen before. And they told Braden nothing would ever be the same again. We shall share it out. If you're prepared to work with us, we would love to work with you. And they danced and sang to him and showed him some of the great world, the old world. They took him through the forest, and as he looked around, he saw the world through their eyes. Suddenly, it was as if he had the ointment of the fairies in his eyes, and he saw their world. He saw, instead of trees, he saw great palaces. Instead of branches, he saw pillars of marble and gold. And then, before him stood the Faerie Queen and the Fairy King, and all their attendants, hundreds in number. They came before Bradon Borron, and together they considered the future. And the Fairy Queen, she raised her hand and changed the sky from night to day, and day back to night. Time will never be the same again, she said. We will create this alchemy, this gold stronger than truth. And with it, one day, we, you and I and all the people of elsewhere, will fight the Lord of the Shadows. He will not have power over this metal. We shall use it to create our weapons, and we shall have revenge on him who killed so many of our people long ago. And Bradon Borron looked down at these little people, king, queen, and the hundreds standing there, and knew at once, because of the ointment, that they spoke the truth, and that between them they could make this metal so strong that even the immortal Lord of the Shadows could not overcome them if they were intent to try and save the world. Agreed then, he said. I will work with you. This will be my life task. I shall do this. But there is a condition. And the king and queen looked up. Unfamiliar with working with others, they were not familiar with conditions. What do you mean? There is a condition. I must remain unknown. Of course, they understood. I will work in secret, he said. I will come here to your palace. I will see it as I see it now. But otherwise I will live in my world, with my people. Of course, it would be a disguise. He would be like a spy, travelling from one world to another. And it was agreed. And from that day forward, until today, they are now working together, making this alchemic metal stronger than truth. Stronger than truth. There, I finished that first part of that. If you want to know more about what I'm doing, you can either go onto TikTok, you can go onto my website, which is Paul Jackson is Elsewhere, or you can go to my Patreon page where all my audio tracks are. That's patreon.com. Paul Jackson is Elsewhere. Or you can just find me here again. I hope to do Saturday mornings before I do TikTok. Yeah. I hope you've enjoyed this brief venture into the realms of Elsewhere. I will see you again. And if I don't, well, I'm sure I will. Enjoy your day.